We are closely monitoring the unfolding story of President Trump's warning to impose further tariffs on China. We now turn our attention to CNN's esteemed senior White House correspondent, Kevin Liptek, who is reporting live. Kevin, what insights can you share regarding the president's stance on this looming escalation? Indeed, this marks a significant intensification in the ongoing tariff conflict between Washington and Beijing. Recall, Pam, that just last week, President Trump enacted a 35% reciprocal tariff on China. In response, China imposed a substantial 34% tariff on the United States. President Trump has issued a statement. If China fails to retract its 34% increase, which is already layered atop a history of trading abuses, by tomorrow, April 8th, the United States will implement additional tariffs on China at a staggering 50%, effective April 9th. He further states that, in addition, all discussions with China regarding their requested meetings with us will be brought to a close. Allow me to elucidate the mathematics at play here, Pamela. It's important to recall that President Trump had previously instituted a 20% tariff on China, specifically in response to its involvement in the fentanyl crisis. Last week, he implemented the 34% reciprocal tariff. This will take effect later this week. He is now issuing threats of an additional 50% retaliatory tariff on China, engaging in this tit-for-tat exchange. The total tariffs imposed on China by the United States would reach a staggering 104%, a figure that is undeniably significant. China stands as the world's second-largest economy and ranks among the United States' foremost trading partners. This may significantly impact American consumers, considering the volume of goods entering the United States. It appears, as evidenced by today's events, that the market is distinctly in search of an off-ramp, yearning for a measure of relief from the president's end. This indicates that the president is deeply invested in this tariff plan, which is precisely not what the markets were anticipating, Pamela. Indeed, you are completely correct. The White House has been engaged in discussions regarding the numerous countries, 50 to be precise, that have approached the president with intentions to negotiate. However, the White House is conveying a series of contradictory signals regarding the president's openness to negotiation. What is the current status regarding that matter? Indeed, it appears that the president is open to discussions with these nations regarding possible trade agreements. However, the threshold for lifting these tariffs will be set quite high. What you're hearing from White House advisors today appears to be a blend of perspectives. This morning, it has come to light that the president engaged in conversation with the Prime Minister of Japan. The nation is seeking to alleviate certain tariffs, announcing plans to dispatch a high-level delegation to the United States to discuss trade matters. Later today, the president is set to engage in discussions with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Last week, he enacted a 17% tariff on Israel. Yet, in a sense, it serves as a cautionary tale. It is noteworthy that Netanyahu removed customs duties on U.S. imports to Israel. However, the president proceeded with the tariff regardless. Precisely. Indeed, that is entirely correct. Thank you immensely, Kevin Liptek. Is it a wolf? Very well, Pamela. I seek to gather additional updates on the unfolding news at this moment. We welcome Democratic Congressman Mike Quigley from Illinois to our discussion. Thank you, Congressman, for being here with us today. To begin with, how do you interpret the president's choice to intensify his trade conflict? Do you perceive any possibility for an off-ramp before this situation escalates significantly? I cannot perceive it. When uttered by the President of the United States, the observation about the peculiar world we inhabit takes on a profound significance. I find myself, as a liberal Democrat hailing from Chicago, in agreement with the headlines from the Wall Street Journal, labeling this as the most foolish trade war in history. There is a profound concern, shared by my constituents, regarding the alarming rise in costs, the looming recession, and the unpredictable nature of the markets, all of which foster uncertainty and pose significant economic threats to our nation. The prevailing concern at this moment lies in the broader context of a national issue, wherein the President appears to believe that we can navigate our challenges in isolation. With merely 4% of the global populace, we find ourselves facing increased financial insecurity, leaving us more exposed to various threats that loom from distant shores. Shall we begin our discussion by delving into the intricate dynamics of the ongoing trade war between the U.S. and China, characterized by a series of retaliatory measures? Clearly, numerous tensions linger in the atmosphere between the two nations. Donald Trump is now poised to impose an additional 50% tariff on China should the nation fail to retract its 34% tariff increase. Kindly elucidate the possible ramifications and identify which economy is likely to bear the brunt of this intensifying trade conflict. It's challenging to predict which will suffer greater losses, yet it's clear who the real victims will be. Us, isn't it? In the United States and across the Western world, we find ourselves surrounded by an overwhelming abundance of Chinese goods that shape our daily lives. Consider, for instance, the quintessential example of an iPhone, currently priced at approximately $1,100 for the latest models. Should you find yourself implementing the 50% increase on components, it stands to reason that you might be tacking on an additional $500 or thereabouts. Naturally, there's a plethora of items available at Walmart, alongside a vast selection found on Amazon. Thus, these would seamlessly flow through. What truly caught my attention regarding President Trump's recent post on Truth Social, made just under an hour ago, is the understanding of the Chinese political landscape and Xi Jinping's character. The notion of imposing a 24-hour deadline for him to retreat is simply unrealistic. He is unlikely to comply. He won't appear any less formidable to Donald Trump. The current disposition of the Chinese leadership seems to lack the inherent inclination for such actions, as it is likely perceived that this approach would extend to the tensions surrounding Taiwan or other matters. I doubt that the ultimatum strategy will prove effective. Last week, we had the opportunity to speak with Rahm Emanuel, who pointed out a striking irony. Here is a president who ran on a platform of ending all wars, yet now finds himself initiating one. He clarified that it isn't a combat war with F-16s or anything of that nature. Rather, it is a trade war. Consider for a moment one of the fundamental purposes of free trade and various trade relations and alliances. They aim ideally to prevent the outbreak of physical wars. Currently, there exists a president who has dismissed his U.S. cybersecurity chief and the chief of Cyber Command, allegedly due to the influence of a conspiracy theorist who purportedly visited the White House and questioned their loyalty. The president persists in blurring the lines between allies and adversaries, claiming that even those who should be our friends are treating us with greater disdain than our enemies. Please provide an understanding of the implications this has for security risks within the United States. Absolutely. To begin with, one must acknowledge that a thorough examination of the past century reveals a troubling pattern. Trade conflicts often have a tendency to escalate into military confrontations. This occurrence has repeated itself on numerous occasions. The War of 1812 with Britain found its roots in this very source. However, traces of that were also evident during World War I and beyond. Beyond the historical context, the merging of our enemies with our friends is likely to return to trouble the United States, in my view. What I wonder is our most formidable military asset as a nation, aside from our nuclear arsenal, which remains largely untouchable. The answer lies within our alliance system. Whom have we burdened with heavy tariffs throughout this process? Japan and South Korea stand as pivotal players in the endeavor to curb Chinese expansion, not to mention the looming presence of North Korea. What purpose does it serve to taint that connection? I'm uncertain. Should the president pivot and assert that this matter pertains to trade rather than politics, one must then elucidate the insights gleaned over the weekend regarding his decision to refrain from imposing any tariff penalties on Russia. As we find ourselves entrenched in the delicate dance of diplomacy aimed at securing peace in Ukraine. Interestingly, tariffs have been imposed on Ukraine. Clearly, the realm of politics has woven itself into the fabric of these tariffs. Yet it has not done so in conjunction with our primary allies in Europe or Asia. Very well, David Sanger, we turn to you live from that location. My sincere gratitude to you.